guys, it's Miss Turner, and for the next 2 days, I will be teaching you how to identify reasons that support an author's point in a text. So to start off, I want you to look at this picture from our text, which is a piece of writing that you read, like a book or a short story or a short fact sheet. So that's a text. So this picture is from a text, and I want you to look at it and state, how do you feel about worms and why do you feel that way? Now, if we were in a classroom and you were to tell me this out loud, you would probably say, I think worms are cool because they're slimy, or you may be on the other side of that and say, I think worms are disgusting because they're dirty and they look weird. And in that one sentence, you would have told me how you felt about worms and why you felt about worms. Now, what does this have to do with reading? Well, many times authors of informational books, or we call them nonfiction books, remember books that are real, about the real world, many times in those books, they're giving you facts, truths about a topic. Other times, authors write it to tell us what they think or believe about something. Then, as a reader, you can look for reasons that support the points that the author wants to make. So this helps with our lesson today, because today I want to teach you how to identify the reasons that support an author's points in the text. If you do this, it will help you have a better understanding of what the author wants to inform you about the topic that he's writing about. So, to help with this, our goal says, I can identify reasons that supports an author's point by telling how the author feels and why the author feels that way. So today we are going to identify reasons that support an author's points in a text by identifying how the author feels and why they feel that way. By identifying how they feel, it's going to help us get a better understanding of what the author wants to tell us about the specific topic that they're informing us about. I have this chart here that you're going to see throughout the lesson, and it's to remind us how we're going to identify the reasons that support the author's point in our text for today. So the first step is we're going to find how the author feels, and then we're going to find why the author feels that way. And when we find both of them, that's going to help us have a better understanding of our text. So this is the text that we're going to use today, and the title of it is Our Garden Helpers. And as you can see, it's about worms. It's all about worms. So let's see what this author has to say about worms. Worms are wet and wiggly. Some kids think worms are icky. I think worms are amazing. A worm has a head end and a tail end. In between are lots of segments or small parts. Each segment has 4 bristles or stiff hairs. The bristles help the worm move through the soil. Worms are good diggers. They dig tunnels. These tunnels help our plants. The tunnels loosen the soil so that air and water can reach the root of the plants. Worms eat dead leaves, soil, and small twigs. Worm poop, called castings, make the soil healthy for our plants. Worms are our garden helpers. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but every passage, every little paragraph that you see here, they each talk about a different fact that worms do. So maybe that will help us into guiding us into noticing how the author feels about worms and why he feels that way about worms. But to keep going with our chart that we introduced at the beginning, our first step is we need to find how the author feels. And I noticed while reading that the author talked about how others feel in the first part. He said some kids think worms are icky. I think worms are amazing. And right there, he tells you how he feels. He doesn't think they're icky. He thinks, I think worms are amazing. And that's how he feels. That's what started this whole small text. So we found how the author feels about worms. Now we need to find Why does the author feel that way? All right? And you'll find this by he'll show it to you by identifying facts. Remember I said that each of these little small passages have facts in them, right? So those facts are going to support why he thinks that worms are amazing. So I'll start. This passage says, a worm has a head end and a tail end. In between are lots of segments or small parts. Each segment has 4 bristles or stiff hairs. The bristles help the worm move through the soil. Now, I found 2 things that I think back up why the author feels that worms are amazing. First one says a worm has a head end and a tail end, right? That's pretty cool. It has a head end and a tail end, but the head doesn't look like the normal heads that we see. They both look the same, don't they? And I think that's probably why he thinks that worms are amazing. They have a head end and a tail end. Another way, a reason that I think that he thinks worms are amazing is because of the bristles. This is a cool fact that I found interesting too. The bristles help the worm move through the soil. So think about, he compares his bristles to stiff hairs, right? So the author may think that this fact is cool because he may compare it to his own hairs. When you think about your hair, does your hair help you move? No, but on a worm, his hairs in the middle of his body help him move through soil, which could be a reason why he thinks that worms are amazing. So already you've seen that we found how the author feels about the worms, the topic, and then we've also found 2 reasons why he may feel this way. And if you notice, these reasons were actually given through facts about worms. So I want you to try. This passage has a fact about a worm that may give a reason as to how the author feels about worms. So what we're going to do is I want you to listen to me read this passage, and then I want you to think about what could be the reason in this paragraph that tells why the author feels that way. Here we go. Worms are good diggers. They dig tunnels. These tunnels help our plants. The tunnels loosen the soil so that air and water can reach the roots of the plants. Now, think about what could be a cool fact that tells why the author thinks that worms are amazing. I'll read it again. Worms are good diggers. They dig tunnels. These tunnels help our plants. The tunnels loosen the soil so that the air and water can reach the roots of the plant. So think about, why do you think the author feels that the worms are amazing in this passage? What is a fact that he gives to prove that worms are amazing? Yeah, it could be that about the tunnels. The tunnels that they dig helps who? Yeah, it helps our plants. So as it helps our plants, that may be something that makes them think that worms are amazing, right? So now what I want you to do is I want you to try this yourself. I'm going to focus on these paragraphs right here that we didn't focus on yet, and this one here that we haven't focused on yet. What I want you to do is listen to these two passages being read, and I want you to find another part that explains why worms are amazing, and tell me in the comments below. So here we go. I'm going to read it, and I want you to tell me why, another reason why you think that the author believes that worms are amazing. Worms eat dead leaves, soil, and small twigs. Worm poop, called castings, make the soil healthy for our plants. Worms are our garden helpers. I'll read it again. Remember, I want you to find something that tells you why they believe that worms are amazing. Worms eat dead leaves, soil, and small twigs. Worm poop, called castings, make the soil healthy for our plants. Worms are our garden helpers. So once you find that sentence that explains why worms are amazing, I want you to tell me in the discussion below. And by figuring out how the author feels about worms and why the author feels this way about worms, helps us better understand the text that he has written about worms. So our goal, remember, was to identify that authors make a point in a text, and we did this by finding how they feel about the topic they're talking about and why they feel that way about the topic they're talking about. When you find that reason, another reason in that paragraph, don't forget to submit it down below. Great job, guys, and thanks for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow.